The voice of sharing Durian ASEAN.
Hi, this is Arlene.
And this is Gowri, and you're listening to Durian ASEAN.
Hey, how are you? Today is Sunday, so oh my God, Sunday again.
You're
Today is
always one day
Monday.
backwards.
Yeah, I was still thinking that it's a Sunday. So how was your weekend?
It was very busy because I moved to a new place, so there was lots of carrying heavy things and making trips back and forth, but I'm all settled in my new place, so that's good.
I see. But why you move out from your house? Why? Or you move out to? Yes, you're still studying, isn't it?
Yeah, but I moved out of my hostel because my classes are over.
So finally, this independent Gauri that I know.
Well, I turned 24 today as well.
That's great as well. Oh my God, you turned 24.
That took you a
Happy
while,
birthday,
huh?
Gauri.
Well, thank you.
So Gauri,
Yeah,
what is your wish for being 24?
I haven't thought about it yet. Yeah, I think I'll give it some thought later.
Yeah. So before we talk about how it feels like being 24,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about how it feels like being a host of Durian ASEAN.
What?
No, just kidding. So let's start our news today. Uh, well, our first news today is about Malaysia.
Yeah,
What's the
and
story about?
it's a pretty controversial story that happened in Penang over the weekend. Apparently, this
The interfaith group?
yeah, the fringe element behind the Penang cow head incident. So
Mm.
I don't know if you know, but one of the our political leaders, he found a cow head outside
Mhm.
his house, an Indian guy. I think his name is Ryer, and he didn't overreact to the incident. I read the article. He was pretty reasonable about it, but of course at the same time he also criticized those people's action for being that insensitive to him, because we do know that the cow is a sacred animal for Indians, and
Mhm.
to leave a cow head in front of his house shows it brings a very insensitive sentiment to this multiracial country where we're all supposed to be understanding towards each other, our differences and all. What do you think?
Oh, that's true. I mean, that's the reason why this interfaith group called MCCBCHST, it's a very long name,
Hmm.
it's called the Malaysian Consultative Council of Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Sikhism, and Taoism. They urge the public not to either react or spark violence, or citing the recent incident. And you're right, the recent incident, it was actually confirmed by a DAP Assemblyman Sri
Hmm.
Deliman that it happened on the morning of June 28th.
Right.
So
Uh,
yeah, I mean it's quite I think it's quite sad that the issue like religious sensitivity is still, one of the issues that is happening in this country.
it's true, and to do something like this, to actually cut a cow's head and to leave it in front of someone's house. And I saw the picture. Actually, the cow's head was still very bloody
Oh
and
really?
kind
Probably
of
they did it.
creepy. Yeah,
Probably
and
they just cut it like this morning.
I think
Probably they
so.
just
Yeah.
butchered an innocent cow this morning, and then they just throw it in front of the house of an assemblyman. But why do you think why do you think they use a cow head? What's so sensitive about a cow?
I think, well, like I mentioned just now, the cow is a sacred animal to the Indians, and for Hindus especially, I guess, the cow is looked upon as a motherly thing, because it's also considered to be very holy, very sacred, and it's like pretty much like a mother figure.
Mm-hmm.
And when that's why you're not supposed to cut it up, you're not supposed to sacrifice it, because that's like kind of hurting your own mother. Or
I
at least
mean,
that's what my mom
yeah, I
told me
mean,
while I was growing
to
up.
me it's very childish. I mean, if they have problem with each other, they could have
Hmm.
settled it somewhere, have a debate about it, or you just have a teh tarik discussion at mama,
Exactly. I think this is a very if I may say, is a very it's a cop out way of settling things,
Mm-hmm.
because if they could have a dialogue, they could maybe even have a little protest, a little demonstration. There are so many ways that they could go about dealing with the issue, but they just had to go to the extreme and do that.
Apparently, that the person who received the cow head drawn into controversy as he criticized some UMNO leaders as they stormed the parliament.
Oh, was it the one who said Chilaka?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But
So
I mean, still, even then, looking at the bigger picture, maybe, do you think we'll ever be able to get past these racial issues and really unite together as Malaysians?
I mean, I would have been more understanding if it's just some random dude on the street that done this.
Right.
I mean, we could understand he doesn't come from a certain social or education background. Might be a bit insensitive on religious respect to other people, but this came from leaders, of our
Right.
country, and I think it's totally unacceptable for any leaders of Malaysia to do those kind of action, especially throwing cow head. I think it's very immature and childish.
I mean, just imagine if it was the other way around. If they found like the head of a pig or something, I'm sure like things would get even worse. There will
Yeah,
be a
it
lot
would
of
definitely get even worse. I mean, can you imagine? But I mean, this is not the first time a person, an assemblyman or a person receiving cow head. I think at one point in Shah Alam also happened the same thing where they drag a cow head.
right.
They were actually a group of Muslims were protesting against the building of a Hindu temple nearby. So I mean, I think to resolve issues, if you are unhappy with certain development, if you are unhappy with certain people, I think you should settle it either face to face discussion at mama or whatever, or you just just suck it up and then like face it. Like there are people that you don't like, you don't have to express it. Sometimes you just move on with your life.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think Raya was the only one who called names. There have been a lot of incidents in this country where political leaders from each party have called each other names, but I don't understand why this one thing has to be blown out of proportion, I would say, and it's become such a huge deal that people feel like it's necessary to do something
Yeah.
as extreme as this, as to leaving a cow head outside his house.
I mean, you are definitely correct. I mean, it's unjustifiable. I mean, for me, frankly, I think it's very childish. I mean, I'm being a bit biased, but I think to me, for our politics to matured, our leaders have to be matured as well in handling situation. And I think it was very matured for the interfaith group, MCC, BCHST, to urge people to, don't be reactive and be calm, especially to
Yeah,
people
I think you're right actually. When I don't know if, I don't think you're biased when you say it's childish, because when someone does things like this, it's like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth thing, which is usually what kids do. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
like,
you slap me, I'm gonna slap you back.
oh, you
push
steal my
me,
toy, I'm going to steal
yeah.
your toy again.
But as adults, that's not how you deal with things. That's not how you go about solving a problem.
So talking about solving problems, we have a huge problem in Klang Valley here.
That cannot be solved.
This is a very interesting problem. It's about the water. As far as I think we all know, in the Selangor area, we have been facing water crisis and water cuts several times within a couple of months ago. But this time, water cut will hit 700,000 Klang Valley households.
And I think the residents in Selangor and Kuala Lumpur will be facing water cuts as the water level falls in treatment plants in these towns.
And I mean, the Syarikat Bekalan Air Selangor Sdn Berhad, or for short, we always call it Syabas, said Gombak, Kuala Lumpur, Petaling, which is our area here, Klang or Shah Alam, and Hulu Langat will be the areas where we will face water cuts and low water pressure for indefinite period of time.
So the water cut is inevitable as there is no alternative water sources that could be channeled to the affected areas that Shabazz also state in a statement.
And their justification said that the reduction in the flow of raw water from Sungai Selangor has forced the water concessionaires to reduce the water pressure to treatment plants, which led to water issue. That's interesting to me. I don't know what else.
We're just speechless, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think ever since I came to KL in February, I think starting from March onwards, this water crisis started, and we started having water cuts all over KL, especially in I don't know why. There were times when we didn't have water for like 3 days straight, 3 or 4 days straight.
And you have to do your daily, routines.
That's right.
Brushing
And,
your teeth, washing your clothes, and all that.
Like because I lived on the 3rd floor, and the next emergency water supply was of course at the ground floor. So can you imagine carrying the pails down and filling up the buckets and walking 3 floors up? That can be crazy, really, really taxing as well.
Yeah, it is taxing. I mean, but the reason that they give is, to me, it's quite interesting to the extent that I feel that maybe it's more than just the reduction of the flow of raw water. I mean, they didn't really explain why there's a reduction in the flow of raw water from Sungai Selangor.
And I think, personally, I find it hard to buy the reason when they say there is no alternative water sources that could be channeled. I'm sure there could be probably hundreds of other ways. I'm not an expert when it comes to this, but I do know that there are water treatment plants out there, and there has to be a way that they can still channel water, and I don't think that this water cut is the only way to go about
I
doing
think what I see is there are two issues that we should highlight here. Of course, number one is why there's the reduction in the flow of raw water from Sungai Selangor, and I think the weather pattern is one of it, is to blame. As you all know, El Nino will be arriving very soon, and or is around the corner. And also, one thing we have to realize that the second reason we have to realize that we have to be more prudent in the way we use water. We cannot use it as in like there will always be water, because the reality is our dam, the water level of our dams are actually quite low. In fact, it's in a measurement that is lower than the normal measurement. So I think, and also with the haze and all that, I think water is something that is more precious to all of us.
I think you brought up a very interesting point there, because we Malaysians are quite notorious for wasting water and using it in ways that is not very efficient, and that's why there are always all these ads on TV, the ways to save water. There's always this Jimat Air advertisements, and also I think in Penang, Lim Guan Eng decided to increase the water tariff if you go beyond a certain unit of usage.
Oh, that's very good. Very good move.
I thought that was very, very good, because it motivates people to keep their water usage low, because as long as you're below this point, you pay the usual rate. But once it gets beyond that point, you pay an extra. It's more like a fine kind of thing. So I think that's a very good effort by Lim Guan Eng, and it definitely made people a lot more conscious, especially like my parents, even my friends. They always think twice before they actually go to the sink, or even when they shower, they actually cut down their time and try to make it fast so they don't use as much water, and they can save their money on the water bill.
It's just to let you all know, Sabah will be deploying water lorries and static tanks during emergency, but the resources are limited, as such priority will be given to places such as hospital and dialysis centers. I think the water crisis was definitely hit hard on a lot of Malaysians in Selangor. And it will be around the corner, and I think in days to come, there will be I predicted there will be a huge water crisis, because as what we had in our one of our topic conversation, I think it was from ABC Dialogue,
right,
where they one of our speaker from Eco Nights actually shared his concern about the inevitable water crisis that will be looming soon in Selangor.
So do you think this will be a long-term thing? Will there be a solution for it, or is this something that we're gonna have to just deal with every year, and just like what you say, just suck it up, and the water crisis happens every year, so I'm just gonna.
I think the government should create a system that
Mhm.
I think for the first for the first batch of water, I think it should be free. I think that's a great move because a
Mhm.
lot of people cannot
Mm.
afford basic things, and I think basic needs should be free. But to a certain extent, it should be charged in a higher rate when they overuse the water,
Right.
because I
Okay.
think we should regulate our habit, and by charging penalties, it will
Mhm.
definitely and change the habits of society as well.
Because I think awareness is also another thing. Because
Mhm.
some people are really not aware.
Mhm.
There's this thing where they say that the shower using a bucket actually saves more water as
Mhm.
opposed to showering with a shower.
Mhm.
But a lot of people have a different conception. They think that the shower actually saves water as opposed to actually using the bucket to bathe. So I think little things like this that could actually help people to save water, but they're not aware of what they're doing.
And it's not, I mean, I don't want to touch on
Mhm.
individuals as well. I mean,
Okay.
you have to realize Selangor is a hub for a lot of companies
Mhm.
having their plantation, factories, and all their all their production activities in the area of Selangor. So, I mean, in the process, they need a lot of water,
Right.
especially when you have a factory, you have a
Mhm.
plant. But then I think the government also should target on cooperation, and ensure that corporation also don't
Mhm.
overuse water, and make sure that water is also being conserved.
All right.
And I think another point that I think we should highlight. Remember, you said that there's no alternative.
Mhm.
If you look at Singapore, they actually use
Mhm.
secondary water
Right.
for, I mean, it's called new water for consumption. And also in in other countries, they have two types of water. One is water for consumption, another one water
Mhm.
is just for secondary use, like that doesn't that is not the usage for our own
Okay.
health and also
Mhm.
consumption.
I think that's a very good move. It's probably something that our leaders can look at as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just a funny story that came to my head. I remember when we went to eat chicken rice and they didn't give us soup because they said there was no water. And I thought that was really extreme, and also hilarious at the same time that they actually serve you chicken rice but they don't give you the soup because of the water shortage.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. So, talking about water pressure, there's a huge pressure happening in Myanmar now. So, it's about Aung San Suu Kyi. She said that keep the pressure on Myanmar. Um, so Aung San Suu Kyi, which is the head of the opposition leader, cautions against the optimism of recent political reforms in Myanmar.
Yep, and everybody has been talking about the tremendous reforms that have come to our country, but I think that it all has been overstated, Aung San Suu Kyi said. And what has been done in this country is nowhere like enough. And she also said that countries such as US and Australia had been right to ease sanctions after the government began political reforms.
I mean, however, the caution against over-optimism and complacency. I mean, she cautious again over-optimism and complacency.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because when we went to the Myanmar forum, I think the speakers pretty much said the same thing. They said, yes, there is an upcoming 2015 elections, but you should not be over optimistic about it because Myanmar has been ruled by the military for a very, very long time, and they've also got a number of seats in the parliament, and therefore it's not not too possible for a complete reform, a complete transformation,
Mm.
and
And the reason why she said all this is because that countries such as US and Australia has been easing sanction after the government began political reform. But to her, is too much optimism simply means that people become complacent and don't really get on with what they have to do because they think that they have done enough. And I think her cautious is definitely not being misplaced. I think it's definitely something that a lot of people in Myanmar should keep in mind. And also donors, foreign donors and foreigners who wants to invest in Myanmar should definitely push for more pressure for the government to reform politically and economically as well.
And I think there's a lot of issues that they need to be addressing at the moment. And I also have a couple of statistics here, actually, where 73% of the people in Myanmar actually lack electricity. And the inflation rate right now is about at 7.3%, which is really high. And the current budget even says that they spend 20% of it on defense, on the military and all, as opposed to only 4% in education.
Oh, wow, that's very interesting. I mean, I think the problem with Myanmar is I think they want to reform economically, but not necessarily politically, because there is still 25% of seats that is
That's
being
right.
occupied by the military, while more than half is being occupied by the government political party, which is called I already forgotten the name of the political party.
Is it the NLD?
Oh no, the other one.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so anyway, that's the reason why I think she's being very cautious, because in a sense that you want to achieve democracy, you should have like a situation where there is a clear two-party system, or at least a more than two-party system.
Right. And also, I think they also have this huge ethnic minority issue that they need to address. I think we talked about it multiple times about the Rohingyas, and also that they are actually stateless now, it seems. Do you want to explain a little bit on what it means when they're stateless?
So this has been happening quite some time ago, even during, especially during the military's regime ruling. The people from Rakhine State, which is the Rohingya people, are considered as Bengali by some Myanmar people and also some Myanmar leaders, because they see them as being not part of their country. I think historically they see them, these Rohingya people, coming from Bangladesh to Myanmar by the British for as a worker, as a coolie, but in reality is they have been living there since forever, since quite a long time ago, and they are not newcomers. I think even if they are new immigrants from the early 19th century, I don't think they should see them as not being part of the Myanmar society, because in reality all of them have been living there. I mean, have been growing up there, living there, being born there, so they are definitely Myanmar people. So there's a huge humanitarian crisis there, to the extent that some activists considered that situation as a genocide, where a lot of people are being put into concentration camp, refugee camps, and a lot of people are being killed at the same time as well.
So I think this is just a little. I think just now earlier you were asking me about the political party. Were you looking for USDP?
Oh yeah, that's the.
So because I just found this
this
statement that said the whole transformation process in Myanmar right now revolves around the military and the USDP, and it seems that the USDP currently holds about 56% of the seats.
In fact, if you look at it clearly, it's clearly resemble our political system as well, where the government, although we do not have a strong military government, but what we have is a majority majority leaders coming from Barisan Nasional occupying the parliament as well as the executive. So in a sense that even if you need progressive laws to be passed, or you need to reform the country, is not very easy when you don't have a clear two-party system or beyond that.
And also to give a little more information, out of the 60 million people in Myanmar, they have 135 ethnic groups. I think that's very impressive in a way, and also interesting because we don't have as much, and we already have enough problems here. So
Well, you'll be surprised that actually we do have a lot of ethnic groups.
Uh-huh.
I think we are having a situation where the government wants to assimilate
Right.
people from different ethnic background into a majority race background. Like when you talk about the Chinese or the Malay or the Indians, they are not just the Indians, the Chinese or the Malay.
That's right.
They can be of different background. I mean, give example the Indian community.
Right.
You don't call them Indian. They are either Tamil or they are Malayalam. I mean, you probably know better than me.
Yeah, I
in terms
mean,
of the categories.
there are Malayalis and Telugu,
Yeah.
and when you go deeper, there's actually more, and there's also like the caste system, which I'm hoping we don't practice anymore. But there still are people who are actually particular about that. So yes, you're right, and we also have this assimilation of the government, especially with the whole One Malaysia concept, which was not implemented the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah, definitely that's true. So I mean, when you talk about, just when you talk about the people of Malaysia, I think similar to Myanmar, actually people are divided into a lot of different ethnic groups. They are not just a Malay. They could be a Bugis. They could be a Minangkabau, or they could be a Melayu Delhi.
That's right.
Yeah, like part of my grandfather background is Melayu Delhi. So I mean, so I think to just put, and we have a lot of fusion categories as well,
Like
when
you.
like the Serani community.
Right.
And the Chetty community and the Baba Nyonya community, and these are new categories that is uniquely a Malaysian category. So I mean, that's all our news for today.
Yeah. Just before we end that, I would like to just give a quote by Professor Marco Bunte from Monash University, who said that even if there is a reform in Myanmar, the military will still be powerful and they will still be elected as guardians or moderators in the country.
And just before I end that as well,
Okay,
just to let you
sure.
know that you can always follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
That's right.
And you can watch our podcast in our YouTube channel.
Yeah, we upload two videos every day. One is our audio programs, and one is a 3-minute video from our guests summarizing the discussion that we have in our dialogues. And besides that, of course, you can also listen to us on the TuneIn app on your smartphone if you have one. And if you, of course, always log on to www.durianasean.com to listen to us. We have our breakfast show, we have our Blast from the Grassroots, which is coming up shortly, and then our ABC dialogue.
So stay tuned.